On Sunday afternoon, Arsenal finally ended their Merseyside woes and won at Goodison Park for the first time in 6 years. Despite the performance not being perfect, there was a lot to look forward to if you're an Arsenal fan, even though it was against a weak team. And Mikel Arteta, who's becoming known for his tactical changes every game, did a really good job at changing into the right moments in this game. So how did Arsenal actually beat Everton, and how did the tactics work perfectly for Arteta's side? First, this wasn't the most interesting game in the world. I mean, the XG for Arsenal was just over 1, and Everton did nothing really going forward, I think sitting at a 0.3 XG. Now, it's quite clear in this game that Everton aren't at the ability at the top of the level, and they really aren't that good, and Arsenal sort of just played with them as much as they could, and Everton didn't really put much threat going forward, making sure Arsenal's defence looked really good yet again. Arsenal actually set up with a 4-3-3, which they've been doing for most of the season, but they actually changed a few things up, changing the goalkeeper with Ray again his debut instead of Ramsdale. Now, people are looking into this, seeing that Ramsdale's been dropped. I feel like it's more a precaution, as Ramsdale will probably play the Champions League game on Wednesday and probably the North London derby on next Sunday. I also think it's a good opportunity for Ray to get his first chance, and he didn't really have too much to do, but some of his passing out was really good in the game. Arsenal also did a few other changes. They finally brought in Vieira for Havertz, which I spoke about in my Havertz video that they should do, and Vieira I thought ended up being really good. Eddie Nketiah played over Jesus, maybe questions on Jesus' fitness, so Eddie got the start today, and he wasn't that effective, and Jesus was a bit better coming on later on. Everton started off with a traditional 4-5-1 really, with Beto being the only main striker trying to keep the ball and get the team up the pitch. Now, this was very effective for their low block situation. They didn't really want to move forward, and they pretty much defended the whole game on their line, and in the end Arsenal didn't really create too much, so in that extent it worked, but they offered nothing going forward. Arsenal scored an early goal through Gabriel Martinelli, but it got controversially ruled out for offside for the rules being a bit stupid, but then in the end 4 minutes later Martinelli picked up a hamstring injury and had to come off, with Trossard coming on. Now, Trossard didn't have the best first half, but he scored a worldie in the second half to give Arsenal the win from a corner, being their 16th corner goal since the start of last season, more than any other team in the Premier League. Now, the first person I want to highlight in this game is Declan Rice. It's a player that I've spoken about a lot on this channel. Rice in this game did exactly what Arsenal signed him for. He basically controlled the tempo of the game and went quick and slow basically when Arsenal wanted to attack, and he basically controlled that defence and midfield as much as he could. He basically had the ball most of the game, and all of Everton's midfielders couldn't even really get close to him. It was sort of just Rice playing when he wanted, where he wanted. He also has the ability to read the game brilliantly well. I mean, there's a lot of times in transition where Everton were obviously trying to get on the counter-attack, and Rice would be coming back brilliantly to help out his defenders, showing just another brilliant part of his game. Arsenal obviously knew going into this game that they were going to have a lot of pressure on the ball and probably create a lot of chances. So in attack, Rice actually positioned himself in that right attack of the team, with Saka, Odegaard and Ben White all linking up, playing overlaps and going inside, with Rice sort of helping them to make sure they managed that and just giving them an option to go through the midfield. He didn't rotate as much as the other three players around that trio, but he did help the attack going in that right hand side and just making sure that he was managing and blocking any sort of counter attacks that could happen, as White was so far pushed up the pitch. And nothing quite shows Rice's great ability of awareness when he got that 50-50 chance that gave Nketiah that chance early in the second half. That was brilliant play by Rice to win the ball back. Another player that was very key to this team, and I mentioned him a minute ago, is Ben White, who I think was fantastic in this game, like he usually is. Now, Ben White is actually very important for Arsenal in last season's low block pressure and this season as well. He's a secret weapon that Arsenal like to use against low block. Obviously, a low block is hard to get past, hard to create chances, but what Ben White actually does is he picks up the ball from the centre of the field on the right side, and he actually runs with the ball, usually giving it into Saka and making that deep overlap run to get around the defenders. We actually saw this quite a few times in the first half, and it did kind of work, but Arsenal still, and just looking at these stats here, that it shows just how effective Ben White was. He was brilliant at creating chances and had the best ball progression in the team other than Saliba, and especially when it's creating a chance. He was brilliant with the team, and he really helped increase the chances of getting up the pitch a lot, and he did loads of good passes and movements around the game, and I think Ben White is a fabulous player that is completely underrated by Arsenal fans. And this led to Arsenal doing most of their build-up play down that right side, because Ben White would push up quite a lot, and they'd have most of the ball and most of their trio or quadruple people working there. And these overloads on the right side over these players usually create a gap on the left side, because the Everton defence have to move over to try and cover that sort of disposition. So on that left side, Trossard, it was Martinelli at the start, and then obviously Martinelli pulled his hamstring in the 25th minute, so Trossard came on, and it gave them quite a lot of space on that left hand side. And this was helped by the fact they had brilliant providation down in that side, because Zinchenko on the ball this game was fabulous in that centre midfield role from the inverted left back. He was brilliant at creating chances and helping the team get up the pitch, and then when Odegaard or someone wanted to move over to that side, and they had Vieira that side, who's obviously a very good creative player and actually had a great game as well, but it was brilliant play, and they kind of did this a lot in the second half as well, where they would wait down the right, overload the right, and then push on the left side when they could. And with Vieira as well playing there, it allowed Arsenal to play a lot more direct. Havertz usually likes running with the ball and like progressing with the ball, and actually has really good off the ball numbers, but on the ball he's not as good. But Vieira on the ball technically he's a lot better, and he loves running with the ball and being direct at the pitch, as he used to be an attacking midfielder back in his Porto days. And this was actually used quite a lot in that second half at the start of it, because if you saw, Zinchenko kept doing these little dummy passes. He kept doing a negative approach, looking like he was going to pass it back to Gabriel, but actually he would swivel, and with his brilliant technical ability, he kept putting it over the top for Trossard in the second half. And I think Vieira in this game was actually a bit of a tactical decision by Arteta, not necessarily on a player form with the Havertz thing, because Havertz, like I've said in my Havertz video if you haven't watched it, he's a tall guy, so they like getting him to the back post. Vieira is not going to run into the box back post. He doesn't do that at all. He actually holds his width and likes keeping the ball and just staying on the bit of the outside. And this was actually brilliant in this game, and it worked perfectly because this allowed Martinelli and then Trossard to actually push up and keep that width on that left side. But now Vieira can also push out there, that wideness, and it actually worked really well with Trossard as well in the second half, so they're clearly very good at it. And Trossard and Vieira actually have a really good relationship in this game. They did really good passes and interchanges with each other quite a lot of times, and I actually think together them two really worked on the left. So two players that haven't started a lot this season, so it's very impressive for Arsenal. And because Everton didn't really know where the wide men were coming from, Vieira and Odegaard actually had quite a lot of big opportunities to sort of get a chance or create a shot, but they didn't really take them. That end product is just lacking a little bit from them two at the moment. Give it some time and then that end product will come, because he's definitely got it there. And as a receiver, Fabio Vieira actually had the highest XG in scoring for Arsenal. He got 0.31. It's actually very good. He's getting in the right positions. Now I want to go over the actual goal that won Arsenal the game. They won 1-0 and it's by a corner goal. Obviously scoring now 16 goals, I've already mentioned it. Arsenal actually had a lot of corners in this game, and before the goal they actually had a corner very similar to what they did. They actually did the exact same setup. So what they did is they took it short at the start here, and then the big men for Arsenal, even being Saliba or Gabriel usually, pushed one of the Everton defenders into the goal. Like, this creates big space for someone like Trossard, White or Vieira, who have great technical ability, but in the one before there, Odegaard decided to cross it in instead, seeing that as the better option, which it didn't really work out. But then with the goal they did the exact same thing. If you watch this goal, it's fabulous how they work it, because they give it into Vieira, and then the Everton notice, oh, he's just on the edge of the box with that push out, so straight away they're running at him and he quickly gives it to Zinchenko, and then suddenly there's an overlap on the other side. You've got Odegaard there, you've got Trossard there, you've got Saka there, you've got Zinchenko there, and Vieira all on that right side, and the 2-3 Everton defenders aren't going to react to that in time. Straight away it's just so effective by them. The pullback, and there's loads of space for Trossard just inside the box, and the finish is fabulous. He's right-footed player, bear in mind, and on his left foot just guides it with his left foot, swerving into the corner off the post, no chance of Pickford. Now the last thing I want to mention, I just want to talk about David Raya, because people have been saying that his performance was really good, but Ramsdale does the same, and I do agree. I think Ramsdale's a great goalkeeper. However, David Raya definitely brought more calmness in the pitch. I spoke about it with Saliba in my Saliba video about calmness in defence. Raya's ability to pass out, and even people pressing him, just didn't seem the worry that you sometimes get of Ramsdale, especially because he does make mistakes sometimes. Just seems a lot more experience there by Raya, and I think he made a lot of good decisions. Overall, it's a really good performance from Arsenal, a really good win. They really broke down this hard defence that Everton have, even though I know they're not the greatest team and they don't offer much going forward. Let me know if you want to see any other tactical videos on any other games that have happened.